Hey everybody, welcome to In the Red Zone. Sean Brown, Michael Johnson here. As you can tell, I'm pretty sick. I'm getting over being sick, so I'm losing my voice. It's week 5 college football picks. Before we get started, please subscribe to the channel. If you haven't subscribed, like the video, leave a comment, and go check out Odds Jam. You're going to want Odds Jam if you're a serious sports bettor. I can't really say much more than that.
Yeah, Mike got sick, but I got way sicker than he did.
Don't believe him. Not at all.
I did get sick, but not near as bad as he did. So I'll do a lot of the talking here. I say a lot. I may get hung up on some games, and Mike will have to tap me.
Let's talk about a couple games.
Yeah, it was a crazy week.
Yeah,
Really
good
week.
Let's talk about the big duck in the room, not the elephant, the duck.
Well, I mean,
Oregon, Colorado. It was the game everybody was talking about all week long.
I think it was only a matter of time, and a lot of people thought that, Colorado, they do what they do. They have skill positions that are really playing at a high level, but then they go up against stiff competition. And, Dan Lanning, he's a defensive guy, but he's also got an offensive staff that is getting that team. That I would say Oregon maybe. And I'm not saying that these teams would, if they played in the playoffs right now, they would definitely win. They would win the national championship. But the teams that are doing what they need to do right now, to me, it's Oregon, it's Miami. I'm having a hard time thinking of...
Nobody else is really dominating like they're supposed to.
Right. Like, you saw, at halftime in the Michigan game, I don't know if they were trailing.
They didn't cover again. They haven't scored more than 35 points, and they have probably the easiest schedule in all of college football behind maybe Georgia.
Well, Oklahoma's got a pretty...
They can't even top 40 with as good as they're supposed to be. So
yeah, they barely didn't cover. I think the
31-7, I think was a final.
They won, I think, by 24 maybe.
Who, Michigan?
Yeah.
It was 31-7.
Okay.
So beating Rutgers.
Yeah, so, and... I'm not saying every team's playing like garbage right now, but nobody is really just like separating themselves except for Oregon. I don't know that Miami. I mean, they're going to have to get through the ACC, which has a couple of tough teams. I mean, that Florida State Clemson game was really, really good.
Yeah, but Clemson really had that game. Klubnik doesn't fumble in that scoop and score.
Yeah,
they win the game.
Right.
I mean, Clemson dominated that game for the most part.
And then the heartbreaker for Notre Dame and almost heartbreaker for you and your Buckeyes.
I was sitting there quiet.
Yeah.
I was getting so mad at the offense. They couldn't do anything. I mean, we have one of the best defenses in college football, but the offense, I'm just really disappointed with Kyle McCord.
Yeah.
Because I know it's his first year starting, but he's been in the system. He's been there for 2-3 years as a backup, learning it. I mean, he should be ready to step in and just take over like, Drake May did last year or something. Bad example because Drake May was a freshman. But he should be throwing darts. I mean, that guy should be throwing for 350 yards a game, 4 touchdowns a game. He should be lighting it up with the receivers he has and that defense to help and the backfield he has. He's been a big disappointment to me.
I think a lot of quarterbacks have kind of disappointed this year. I mean, you look at Alabama and the fact that they, can't seem to find a whole lot. They did cover this last week, and I'd picked Ole Miss. It was a close game for a long time, but yeah. Then Oklahoma doesn't struggle with Cincinnati, but their offense looks stagnant at times. I mean, they really. They'll hit a big play here and there, but once they start going, 2 weeks and you've got Texas. So we'll see what happens there. But
I still think, I said it last week, I still believe Cincinnati's got one of the best defenses in college football. And I think that's why Oklahoma only scored 20. I'm not surprised by that. And I think Cincinnati's big downfall there, because I had picked Cincinnati to cover. Emory Jones is terrible.
Yeah.
He's absolutely horrible.
He can make throws. He's like, I don't know, maybe like, I think Quinn Ewers is better, but just the inconsistency. I saw some throws that Emory Jones made. I'm like, if he did that,
few and far between.
If he did that every single time,
every time he'd be
great. But it's like,
but he was inconsistent at Florida.
Yeah,
he was inconsistent at Arizona State, and now he's in his 5th year.
Yeah,
he still can't.
Well, Oklahoma played Florida in I think it was the Cotton Bowl a couple years ago, and Emory Jones came in and He wasn't able. I've never been a firm believer in him.
No. I think Cincinnati should go with their backup at this point because
they've got
their defense.
I think they do have a 4-star true freshman
starting
who they're. I don't know. Do you burn a kid who's a freshman and you can actually hurt a kid by throwing him in there too early? And
you can, but the good thing he has going for him is one, the Cincinnati offensive line is pretty decent. And you got a defense that keeps you in games. So as a freshman, you can make mistakes. Defense will still keep you in the game.
Can you? Do those fans, are they going to be
I think they
forgiving?
Would. They're going to be more forgiving of a true freshman than they are a 5th-year senior making the same mistakes.
That is true. Yeah.
The ceiling is higher with that kid than it is with Emory Jones.
Yeah. I mean, they've got 2 losses on the year now, so not really playoff.
Doesn't get any easier this week on the BYU either.
Yeah.
So
I think they do have a chance to win that game.
So the last thing I want to mention, because I brought it up first, was, Oregon was fired up and just blew out Colorado.
Yeah.
And we heard what Dan Lanning said in pregame.
Yeah.
They're for clicks, we're for wins, things like that. I made a comment on social media that I just want to bring up. People keep saying if you're against Deion Sanders and coach, in Colorado, that you just hate, you're racist or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not what it is. Going into the year, I wanted him to succeed. I thought it was a great deal that he went to Colorado.
Yeah.
But when all you do is just talk,
yeah,
there's a line between confidence and cockiness.
Yeah.
They crossed it.
Yeah.
You get to a point where people they hate it. They just want you to shut up.
Yeah.
And so what you do is by you continuing to run your mouth like you do, you make yourself a target.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to blame him, but some of that responsibility for that late hit on Travis Hunter goes on Coach Prime. Because when you're running your mouth like that, Colorado State players, you get to a point where you as an opposing player, you don't just want to win. Now you want to go hurt them.
Yeah.
And that's what Colorado's going to get. They're going to get teams who don't just want to beat them. They want to hurt them.
Yeah.
There's going to be players out there on defenses that want to hurt Shadir Sanders.
Yeah.
And when Coach Prime keeps running his mouth, they keep showing the flash and everything, you just make your kids a bigger target. He just needs to shut up and coach.
And it's not right. We're not saying that's right.
No, I'm not saying it's right, but it's reality.
But it's what happens.
Yes, it's what happens.
I remember playing, Little League basketball games, and that one kid that every time his team, not him, every time his team would do something great, he's, pumped up and screaming in everybody's faces. And that's similar. I'm a fan of Deion Sanders. I love the whole faith-based, loving his guys and showing them love. And I think he's doing a lot of things right, but dial it back a little bit, and maybe he'll learn that. I mean, he's been at schools that bend over hand and fist just to give him anything he wants. Yep. Now this is D1, and now it's Power 5. This isn't,
It's not Jackson State.
It's not Jackson State. It's not somewhere where, you're the biggest thing on campus. And granted, he is the biggest thing on campus, but, there's bigger personalities or bigger, more accomplished people in this sport.
I don't think there's any other team or coach that Dan Lanning would have made a statement like that against.
Yeah.
There's 131 teams in college football, and that Colorado and him are the only ones acting like that.
Yeah.
And we have it's college football. You have your fair share of egos.
Yeah.
And people who go across the line to caucus. We've never seen it to this level. Yeah. We just haven't.
He's a genius with marketing, I'll say that.
Yeah.
But it's gonna get his team hurt.
It is.
And not just physically. They're gonna get everybody's Super Bowl. I mean,
absolutely.
Week in and week out. And does that take a little bit of pressure off of USC? Does it take a little bit of pressure off of UCLA?
Nobody's out there saying we want Bama. Now everybody we want Colorado because they want to crush Colorado.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes.
Man.
All right, you ready to get started?
They'll be humbled. I mean, because they've got USC coming up, and man, that might get ugly too.
Well, USC doesn't have the defense Oregon has. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, let's get started. Week 5 picks. Only picking 15 games, not picking over-unders, just because I don't want to talk as much. So I just want to get through it. First game, Utah at Oregon State. Oregon State 1.5-point favorite. Utah is only giving up 51 yards rushing per game, and Oklahoma or Oregon State, they're averaging 224 yards per game rushing. So something has to give there. Oregon State lost last week to Washington State, which I said would happen, even if they were the favorite. I firmly believe that that Utah is still the best team in the Pac-12. I just believe it. I know they still don't have Cam Rising playing, but they are just so good, especially on defense. This is a road game, which is a little bit different for them. But Oregon State, I think they're a very good football team, but they're not ready to compete for the Pac-12. I think Utah goes in there and outright gets the win, so I'll take Utah.
I'm taking Oregon State. We still don't know what's going on with Cam Rising, if he could be back. I mean, it seems like for 2 weeks now, 2 games, 2 weeks, we keep hearing, he's been elevated from not playing to questionable.
Yeah.
They're just going to continue to do that every week. They're going to say, whether he's ready or not, they're going to keep saying he's questionable, and they're not going to release any kind of deal.
Yeah.
It's the gamesmanship part of it. And I was trying to pull up the stats that their backup quarterback, I forget his name, but he didn't have a very good game. He threw for like 170-something yards. May have thrown a touchdown there, but... Yeah, I think this is the first time they run into some really, really tough competition in Oregon State that can maybe go blow to blow with them.
Oregon State does have a great offensive line.
Yeah.
They really do.
So I'm taking Oregon State in this. It's 1.5. It's Oregon State at home. So I'm taking Oregon State.
Cincinnati is at BYU. BYU is a 3-point favorite. Cincinnati averaging 488 yards per game on the ground on offense. BYU is only giving up 61 yards a game rushing. And, of course, BYU has quarterback Keaton Slovis, who's probably, his 8th team by now. He's just been everywhere, all over college football. So, Cincinnati's lost 2 in a row. They dropped the one to Miami of Ohio. I really believe they were looking forward to Oklahoma.
I think that was probably a little bit of that,
they
too.
They played a really tough, solid game with Oklahoma. It's not anything that they have to be ashamed about.
Yeah.
They go on the road to BYU, but that's a tough place to win, is at BYU. Cincinnati, though, has got to rebound. They got to salvage their season.
Yeah.
They still have a chance to be very good in the Big 12.
Yeah.
And to have a really good finish. I think this game's really a toss-up.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take Cincinnati as the underdog. This could be a 1-point game.
Yeah, I'm taking Cincinnati as well. And it's not just I want them to win because my team just played them, and if they win, they look better. My pick will have no bearing on any of that. But I liked what I saw from their defense. I don't know if I can agree with you on one of the best defenses in college football. I think their defensive line, their front seven was great. OU doesn't have much of a running game right now for whatever reason. And they were able to keep the running backs from kind of gaining. There were a couple of longer runs, but those were few and far between on Saturday. They really kind of held OU's ground game, which in the past has not been easy to do. Their offensive line is pretty good, OU's being, and I think that Cincinnati did enough. They didn't score a touchdown, but they still moved the ball down the field. If they can capitalize on some of that stuff, I think they have a good chance. And BYU just lost to Kansas, at Kansas, 38-27. They've played Arkansas, who's not very good. Sam Houston State, they played, and Southern Utah. That's who BYU has played so far. Yeah. So I think Cincinnati's been a little bit more tested, not as road tested, but BYU's back at home. I've got Cincinnati.
Okay. USC is a 24.5-point favorite at Colorado. USC, this will be the best offense they've faced so far. The first time that their defense has really been tested. I do think, despite everything I just said about Colorado, Shadir Sanders is going to rebound. He actually didn't play bad against Oregon.
They're back at home.
They're back at home. They need some redemption. They're not going to win.
Yeah.
USC, Caleb Williams is way too much for that defense.
Right.
But USC is not 24.5 better than Colorado.
Yeah.
This game stays within 10, maybe 15. But I'm going to take Colorado in the points.
Yeah, Arizona State was able to kind of hang with USC in this last game. I mean, you had, let's see, what was the score going into the third? USC scored 15 points in the fourth quarter to kind of put it away, but Arizona State was kind of hanging around for a while. USC's defense is just garbage. I mean, it's not very good. I think that Colorado will do enough to keep this game closer than not close. I think still a 14 to 17 point win for USC. So I think 24 and a half?
24 and a half.
Yeah, I can't see that with USC really against a whole lot of teams that they're going to play this year.
Right. Yeah, because now they're really getting into their schedule now. Yeah. Because Colorado's not going to be a cakewalk.
Yeah.
They're going to struggle with Utah. They're going to struggle with Oregon State.
Yeah.
They're going to struggle with UCLA. They're probably going to struggle with, who am I forgetting? I'm forgetting another. Oh, Washington, of course.
Yeah.
That offense.
Yeah.
I mean, USC might be the fourth best team in the Pac-12.
Is the Pac-12 the best conference this
Right
year?
now it is. Right now it's definitely the best conference.
That's so crazy. I mean, a couple of years ago they were the worst. I mean,
Washington State might even beat USC.
Yeah.
I mean, so man, they're playing the lights out.
Yeah.
So okay, I'm ready to move on then.
Yeah, I've got Colorado. You got Colorado.
Yep. Florida is at Kentucky. Kentucky is a 3.5 point favorite. This one really becomes the Devin Leary versus Graham Mertz show. Both quarterbacks really been balling out this year. Neither team's given up 100 yards rushing, so this is a straight shootout. Here's the thing, though. I don't care who's the favorite, whatever. Here's the bottom line. One of the best skits I've ever seen from SEC Shorts was a couple years ago when Kentucky just had the team.
Yeah.
The team. Florida goes into Kentucky, Kroger Field. There's just no way Florida should have won that game.
Yeah.
Florida won the game. And the skit they did, which I'll put a link, you can click on it. The skit they did is still one of my all-time favorites, where Florida delivers a pizza box with an L and a 2-liter of Kentucky Tears. It's the greatest skit that I've seen from SEC Shorts. Bottom line, I'm taking Florida as the underdog. I'm taking Florida.
There's a lot to top the Matthew McConaughey one.
That's pretty good too.
Locked in the office of the Texas football operations office.
That one was pretty good too. But the Kentucky one, that was the first one that I seen from SEC Shorts that was just, I just laughed. I just watched that over and over and over.
Yeah.
And so it was really funny. Bottom line is, it doesn't matter who's the favorite, who's got what. This just always ends up being Florida's game. They always go into Kentucky and they always manage to win.
Yeah, and
so I'm going to play the percentages and say Florida wins.
At this point, though, both teams are really similar. I mean,
they are
in
stats and everything.
Yeah, so they're kind of the same team. Almost.
I mean, Kentucky's 4-0.
Yeah,
and Florida's only losses to Utah.
Yeah.
So
man, I think talent-wise, they're similar.
They are.
I'm going to go with the home team here. I mean, it's 3 points. You basically give
2.5. Yeah.
Oh,
3.5. It's 3.5.
Okay. Yeah. You basically give the home team 3 points. I'm gonna just go with Kentucky. I think that it's really a coin flip at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Texas A&M is a 6.5 point favorite against Arkansas. Arkansas kept it really close with LSU, which completely surprised me. I didn't see that one coming. They get Texas A&M this week. Texas A&M took care of Auburn because I thought Auburn would play better, but Auburn's offense is atrocious.
Yeah,
it's terrible.
Since so Texas A&M's been kind of quietly taking care of business
ever since the loss to Miami.
Yeah,
which was an embarrassing loss. But
which
still.
We've seen that Miami is doing what they're doing.
Still a lot of stuff, even though despite their winning and everything, and that's the only loss, I still see a ton of stuff on social media about Texas A&M fans talking about buyouts, and they're talking about a 10% food tax to pay his buyout, just all kind. Which, when you're winning, that's surprising. But apparently they're getting fed up with Jimbo.
What was he doing on the field there? What was he doing standing on the field? And then he sees the play coming toward him.
I know.
I mean, did they get flagged for that play? Tell me they got flagged for that play.
I didn't see the play. I saw a replay. I'm assuming he did get flagged.
That's just dumb.
Hey, if you're going to be out there, you might as well get in the way and stop the guy from scoring a touchdown. And just, even if you get tossed out of the game, stop the touchdown.
Yeah.
But I mean,
somebody showed a clip of a show or a movie where a coach did that in a high school game, just took out the ball carrier and started yelling at the ref. So anyway, I'm going to take Texas A&M. I think they're just. I know it's been BYU and LSU that Arkansas has lost to, and they've been, 34-31 against LSU, 38-31.
Yeah.
So they're formidable.
I'm taking Arkansas at home to cover.
What the heck? I'm going to switch to Arkansas. The 6.5 and how closely they've been playing with teams.
Right.
Yeah, I'm gonna switch. And switching this season for me has actually worked out pretty good.
This is the time when week 5, when you typically start seeing injuries start to happen when you pile up with Arkansas. If this was 2 weeks down the road, I'd be taking Texas A&M. Arkansas still somewhat healthy, but I think after this game they start to fall off because that's just what they do. Okay, Clemson 6.5-point favorite at Syracuse. Syracuse is undefeated. Now, they haven't really played anybody. They did play Purdue, but that's not much of a game. Clemson has had 2 tough games, really. Lost to Duke, obviously lost to Florida State in a game that they pretty much owned the whole game till the end. But Syracuse is always good at home, and they don't lose very often at home. Right now, Clemson is, I don't know if you want to call it a panic mode, but they got to figure out, they got to find an identity. Like, they got to figure out, who are we?
Yeah.
Cade Klubnik is, I got to be something else. Forget Cade Klubnik. Garrett Riley has been completely disappointing as an offensive coordinator at Clemson. Yeah. He's been disappointing. I am taking Syracuse at home. I'm going to play the history and the fact that Syracuse doesn't lose at home very often. And they're playing pretty good football. I think it's very close. And even if they lose, I think they would cover 6.5. So I'll take Syracuse.
I mean, without a scoop and score, are we saying that right now? I mean, that's one play that kind of.
I don't know. I was flipping back and forth, and I was watching that game.
Yeah.
And for Clemson, it's all about their defense.
Yeah.
But their offense is still not that good. It just isn't. I mean, so.
Klubnik was 25 of 38 for 283 yards, 1 touchdown. So not a terrible day.
Yeah.
He had a QBR of 51, so that's not great.
It's not great.
He had 13 rushes for 10 yards and 1 touchdown on the ground. Will Shipley, I kind of thought, as highly recruited as he was, kind of thought he would start to break out a little bit more than he has. I don't know. I think he was injured at one point, but
he played yesterday. He played well yesterday, but not.
He had
not
60-something yards on the ground and maybe a touchdown. But the Battle of the Oranges, I'm going to go with, what's that spread?
6.5.
6.5. I'm going to keep Clemson. Okay. I've got Clemson. I think they rebound a little bit this week. And then, like you said, I mean, they should have beat Florida State.
Yeah. Dabo Swinney's got to, dude, you got to get in the transfer portal. You got to start playing the transfer portal.
So Dabo Swinney and then Mike Gundy, you have, not to go on a tangent here, but you have these coaches who just, they're stubborn and they're set in their ways, and college football's changing, and they're not really changing with it.
You know who else was on that same boat with them last year during the season? Brent Venables. And in the offseason, because I remember some of his press conferences talking about, we want to grow and we want to bring kids in who want to be here. Not the, why is this kid transferring? You got to ask those questions. I got my assistants saying, this guy can fill this gap. Well, do we really want him? He changed in the offseason.
So
he changed.
I wonder. I hate giving Lincoln Riley credit. Lincoln Riley did some good things at OU. I will admit that. Made it to the playoffs, whatever. Still don't like him. But he kind of was of that culture, kind of ushering some new things. Like, we're going to take advantage of the transfer portal. We're going to take advantage of NIL. Whatever we have to do, we're going to get these highly recruited guys in here. And I wonder if Joe Castiglione, the athletic coordinator or athletic director at OU, went to Brent Venables and was like, look, I know you're against it, but we're gonna have either that or his assistant coaches came to him.
I think it was I don't think Castiglione probably brought up transfer portal. he probably brought up, you can't go 6-7 again.
Yeah.
And then his coaches said, Coach, if we want to be successful and we want to win,
we got to
utilize this.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to fall behind.
Yeah.
And I think he did the smart thing by listening.
Yeah, I was nervous when he first came on, and
Yes.
you started hearing some things. Brent Venables doesn't like the transfer portal. He doesn't like NIL. Like, it's like, man, you're tough.
Right. I know. I don't like it either.
Yeah.
But it is what it is.
Yeah, it's
All
the
right.
state of the game.
So, all right. You have
I have Clemson,
I have
you got Syracuse.
Let's move on. Georgia is a 16-point favorite against Auburn. Auburn's defense looks decent. I think Auburn has really good talent on defense. Their offense is atrocious. Georgia hasn't even been tested. They haven't played anybody until now. This will be their first test, and it's an SEC opponent. That being said, I still think Georgia is more than 16 points better than Auburn.
Yeah.
I will take Georgia in this one.
Yeah, Auburn's given up about 300 yards. I mean, Georgia, this isn't the same defense that you've seen in years past,
Right.
In the last about 5 years.
But Carson Beck has thrown for, I'd have to look it back up. I thought it was over 1,200 yards. He's one of a few that's
1,184 yards,
Close to
6
1,200.
touchdowns, 1 interception.
I mean, that's pretty good.
Compared to Peyton Thorne for Auburn, who's thrown for 561 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions.
Yeah,
So
and the
not
thing
great
is,
there.
and Auburn's not running the ball really well. And if they can't throw the ball on Georgia, they're certainly not going to run the ball. I mean, I know Georgia's defense isn't what it's been in the past, like you just said. Auburn's not going to run the ball.
Brock Bowers, that guy has like a tree trunk for an arm. Did you see the stiff arm? Or not really a stiff arm. It was like he straight up shoved a defender to the ground. I mean, just manhandled the guy. Looked like a daycare teacher just palming a kid's face and just throwing him to the ground. I mean, the dude, gosh, he's going to be a heck of a pro when he makes it in the NFL. Anyway, not to ride on him, but I'm taking Georgia. I just think that they're that much better.
Yeah.
They've played, South Carolina a little close. The only thing I don't like is UAB scoring 21 points on them. That should not happen.
That shouldn't happen.
That just shouldn't
You're
happen.
Right. I forgot about Georgia already playing South Carolina, so I was wrong about that. They have had a tested game, so
Yeah.
I was wrong. I forgot about that.
So, yeah, different Georgia team than you've seen in years past, but I do think that they are at least 16 points better than Auburn.
Next one, Michigan's 18.5-point favorite at Nebraska. Nebraska's defense only giving up 46 yards rushing per game. Michigan pretty much a cupcake schedule from here since beginning of the season. They haven't played anybody, haven't been tested. And that being said, playing a cupcake schedule, as I mentioned earlier, they have not scored more than 35 points in any game. You would expect them to score over 40 at least a couple of times against those opponents. Nebraska's defense is for real. I've watched them twice. They're very good. Since they got away from Jeff Sims at quarterback and have that Hayberg kid at quarterback, Nebraska now can score points.
Well,
Nebraska,
he's Nebraska's leading rusher now too.
I take Nebraska all day in the points in this one, and this is a possible upset this weekend.
15. Well, now the line has moved to 18.5, but
That's what I have at 18.
Oh, you do have it 18. Oh,
18.5.
okay. Well, shoot.
That's what I'm saying.
Nebraska's only allowing 40.
Michigan can't cover. They can't cover their butt with a blanket right now. I mean, they can't cover anything.
Nebraska's only giving up 46.3 yards rushing, but they are giving up 251 yards through the air. That kind of spells a recipe for getting blown out. I mean, I've just seen it week in and week out. Like the teams that are good at stopping the run, if they're susceptible to the pass, like Baylor was, and Texas just, threw all over them. So. Man, that's a tough one. I want to take Nebraska simply for their defense.
I can tell you there's no way Michigan's covering that. There's no way. At most, Michigan would score 30 points, and you're talking about...
But have Rutgers and Nebraska, will they play at all?
Rutgers and Nebraska. I'm not sure.
No, it doesn't look like they are. Okay. I wanted to see if maybe they had played. That's right. We're just now getting into conference play. I'm tempted to go with Nebraska. Just their defense and them being at home. I'll go with Nebraska.
Go with Nebraska. All right.
I don't like it, but
hey, go with what you think.
Because
You had the good week last week. So
yeah, I was let's see,
13
6-1, I think. Anyway,
Shaun had the picks last week for sure.
But I'm gonna follow it up with a bad week, I bet. I don't like the pick. I would not put money on this just because Michigan could blow them out. I mean, they could. Just because Nebraska has been what Nebraska's been. But I'm going to take Nebraska with you, and we'll see.
Kansas at Texas. Texas 16.5-point favorite. I'm taking Kansas to cover. I don't know what else to say. Kansas has surprised me. They're undefeated. Texas is a really good football team, too. 16.5 is a big spread when you got two offenses scoring like both these teams are.
Yeah. Yeah, both teams are limiting the run game. But both teams are also throwing for, Kansas is thrown for 245 yards a game, and Texas is 277. Kansas, though, is rushing for 217 yards per game, where Texas is rushing for 155. I think Texas has a running back who went for... Jonathan Brooks, 18 carries for 106 yards, 2 touchdowns. So kind of finding some stuff in their running game. They were pretty bad at that at the beginning of the year, but I'm taking Kansas too. I don't think they win, but that spread.
Which Kansas has been Texas's kryptonite last
several
years.
That spread has gone to 17, which worries me a little bit.
Okay.
We've locked it in at 16.5. So, man, if it goes any more than that, I wouldn't touch it. But Kansas, I'll take them. I'll take them to keep it closer.
All right.
Yeah.
LSU is a 2.5-point favorite at Ole Miss. Jaden Daniels so far has thrown for 1,300 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Even though LSU is the favorite.
Sorry. What I forgot to mention on the Texas game, OU and Texas play the week after that.
So Texas could be looking ahead.
And Kansas is a heck of a lot better than Iowa State. So I don't think that OU will really struggle with Iowa State this week. I think that for all those reasons, that's why another reason I'm taking. I just forgot to mention that.
All right, back to this one. LSU, 2.5-point favorite against Ole Miss. As I said, Jaden Daniels. He's throwing for 1,300 yards, 12 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Despite LSU, the odds makers have LSU as the favorite. I don't usually mention this, but the ESPN predictor has Ole Miss as a 56.7% chance of winning.
Huh.
So the ESPN predictor is saying Ole Miss. Vegas is saying LSU. The LSU game being very close with Arkansas last week is what is giving me pause.
Okay, so part of that matchup predictor deal, they use the FPI index, and we've seen how it's flawed in some kind of way. I don't know what it is. They had
but
OU.
The spreads are often set using the power index as well.
Initially it is, but
for opening lines, which is what.
That's true. So FPI had, as far as their rankings, had OU as the second ranked team in FPI. So I don't think that Oklahoma is the second best team in the country. That's why I kind of pause sometimes when I look at that matchup predictor. But you're right. It's weird that LSU is favored. It's always weird when you see that. So you got to think something's not really.
Because it's usually the predictor follows kind of the odds.
Yeah.
Usually.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I'm taking LSU.
Maybe it'll catch up. Normally it's pretty set, when by the time we shoot.
Yeah.
So who are you taking?
LSU.
You're taking LSU. I am taking LSU as well.
All right. Iowa State's at Oklahoma. Oklahoma 19-point favorite. Iowa State's terrible. I mean, they've beaten Northern Iowa and Oklahoma State, and that's not saying much because Oklahoma State's dreadful. Losing to South Alabama 33-6 or whatever that score was.
Yeah.
Iowa State's just not good.
Yeah.
They're not good. Their defense can play good at times. They don't have an offense. Oklahoma should boy, I hope they're not looking ahead. I'm taking Oklahoma to cover. I hope the heck they're not looking ahead to
See, I don't
Texas.
think they will. I think they could use this game as a way to kind of fine-tune some things.
They need to, yeah.
Especially with their running game.
Work on the running game is what I was going to say.
They've got to figure. I mean, you can't have Javonte Barnes and Gavin Sawchuk sitting on the bench the entire game. You just can't. When stuff's not working with Marcus Majors or with Tawi Walker, which Tawi Walker has been the most consistent running back Oklahoma has. But you've got these other guys who have been injured, I mean, in the beginning. But are they not better now? I know hamstring injury with Gavin Sawchuk. Hamstrings can be lingering issues that keep coming up if you try to play too early or just something is up with the physical therapy. Sometimes you can have a setback, and maybe that's happening. But you now start to get parents of these players who are starting to tweet out after the game, pretty cryptic tweets, but the fans see that and can see that some of these guys aren't happy with 0 carries. I mean, give them a chance. You're telling me there's not 5 carries for one of those guys, to see if one of them can bust something loose.
But here's the problem, though. I mean, Oklahoma's always been a good running team.
Yeah.
Should be able to be a running team. But you got to remember, Jeff Levy is the offensive coordinator. They never ran at Ole Miss. They never really ran at Baylor.
But
that's not him. He throws the football, and he does not believe in establishing a running game.
His offense, though, is kind of predicated on run to open up the pass. Like Lincoln Riley was pass to open up the run. That may be flipped, but anyway, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And you got to have a strong rushing game. I mean, especially if, for as easy of a schedule as they have, if they somehow beat Texas next week, then they've got a good shot of making it all the way to the conference championship game unscathed. I mean, they could win all those games. It's going to be tough, but they could. And if they make it into that, great. If they win that game and somehow make it into the playoffs, you got to have a balanced offense.
Yeah.
You don't see the teams winning those games with just a one-dimensional offense.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen.
Right.
But I'm taking Oklahoma here. I think that Cincinnati's better than Iowa State, and we saw Oklahoma won 20-6. It seems like the weeks after they have kind of a stagnant day out on the field, they go out and they hang like 56 points on the next team. So, and that worries me for Texas.
Exactly.
Yeah, because they haven't been very consistent.
Yep. Thing about Texas, though, it was brought up in last week on, I think in the broadcast, Dusty Dvorak said this because he was calling the Baylor game against Texas. Texas has a tendency to play to their opponent's level.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if Texas is a better team; they're going to play at whatever level.
Well, it's like
most of the time.
It's like last year. They ended up 8-4, 8-5. And they played Alabama really close. I mean, it was a 1-point game at the end, So, and then Alabama got better and Texas got worse later on. But all that to say, I've got Oklahoma covering. I think 21 points, maybe. If it goes over 21, I would maybe dial that back a little bit, take Iowa State. But I've got Oklahoma.
Notre Dame 4-point favorite at Duke. Hartman's thrown for 1,246 yards, 14 touchdowns, no interceptions yet this year. Audric Estime, I don't know how to say his name. 591 yards on the ground, 5 touchdowns. Notre Dame getting it done on offense on both sides. They struggle with Ohio State, but I mean, Ohio State's defense, one of the best in college football, if not the best. Notre Dame's going to come back. They're going to bounce back. They're going to beat Duke. But I will say, I'd be more than happy to get this pick wrong because I like Duke. Duke's been one of those ACC gutter teams for so long.
Yeah.
They're like Kansas. You just want to root for them.
Yeah.
And so I want Duke to win the game because I want Duke to win the ACC. It's not that I hate Notre Dame. I don't hate Notre Dame. I love Notre Dame. And I like Marcus Freeman. But Duke's the underdog Cinderella story, and I really am rooting for them. So I'm taking Notre Dame because money-wise, that's who I think is going to win.
Yeah.
But I really am pulling for Duke.
Yeah. When I first look at this, Duke's 4-0. They've played UConn, who is an annual just under
tune-up game,
under the dumpster
preseason game.
Yeah, and they've played Northwestern, who we all saw fired their coach before the season. and they played
Clemson.
Lafayette, and they beat Clemson in that first game.
Yeah.
It was the first game. I think Clemson is better than that now. Man, Notre Dame just lost a heartbreaker, in the final play of the game, or what looked to be the final play, before the kickoff, and then they had that little 1
And if
second.
they stuff the Buckeyes and win that game, they're probably the number 3 team in the country, and it's not even a discussion. Oh, obviously they're going to kill Duke.
I saw this
mean,
right before heading over here. I saw Notre Dame had 10 players on the field
Twice
during
two
that.
plays in a row.
During that play, guess exactly where they ran the ball, to the left side where they were short a guy.
Oh yeah.
I guarantee a guy would have been right in that area, and it was close. I mean, he
it was
had to
very
work
close.
to get that touchdown, and so
I mean, the ball clearly made it past the line. He got it by about.
he did, but he had to work for it. And
He did.
And they had another guy right there. Who knows? It could be Notre Dame celebrating that win today.
And the drive before that, Ohio State was down there, and Notre Dame stopped them. And I think there was less than 4 minutes to go because I remembered, no way. We're not, because Notre Dame's going to take time, run down the field. Even if we get the ball back, I have no faith in Colin McCord. We're not going to get the ball down the field.
Yeah.
And honestly, it was just, I don't even know how they did it. I mean, I don't. A win's a win. I don't care. We're past it. Let it go. But I mean, yeah, Buckeyes are extremely lucky to have won that game.
But all that to say, Notre Dame's going to come out pissed off. And I'm sorry, I got a coworker who's a huge Duke fan, hates North Carolina. He's from North Carolina, but they look, when you look at everything and how well that they've played, but they're going to get a really pissed off Notre Dame, and we'll see what Riley Leonard can do this year this game. He's thrown for 778 yards, 2 touchdowns, and we'll see. We'll see what Duke's made of this week for sure.
I mean, I wish them the best. South Carolina's at Tennessee. Tennessee 11.5-point favorite. South Carolina, they're only getting 75 yards rushing per game. It's abysmal. It's terrible. But Spencer Rattler is better than Joe Milton.
Yeah, they're throwing
Spencer
for
Rattler is
340.
better than Joe Milton. Bottom line. I know they're going into Tennessee. This is not last year's Tennessee. Joe Milton, I think, has only thrown 1 interception, so that's good for him. South Carolina outright wins the game, so I got South Carolina.
Oh, man. I've said it plenty of times. Spencer Rattler can make any throw on a football field. I mean, the guy is just uber talented. His problem isn't anywhere with his arm. I don't know about his footwork. I'm not a QB guy or anything, but mainly his problems have been with decision making, throwing into double, triple coverage. I mean, that he had that problem at OU. Which is partially why he got benched. And I think just allowed, what time's this game at? This is a 6:30 game. It's going to be crazy loud in that stadium.
Yeah, it is.
I mean,
Biggest stadium in college football, so yeah.
Spencer Rattler within the SEC, I mean, he's a pretty decent-sized personality. People know of Spencer Rattler. They're going to want to just do everything they can to rattle him and get him, discombobulated, making bad decisions. I've got Tennessee simply because that crowd will have his head ringing for the next 3 days after he leaves that stadium.
So you got Tennessee covering 11.5.
I'm taking Tennessee to cover 11.5. South Carolina has looked up and down this year. They played Georgia. They played North Carolina. Furman scored 21 points on them. Mississippi State scored 30 on them. I don't know. Their defense is atrocious, and I don't think that Rattler can do it all with his arm.
Okay. West Virginia's at TCU. TCU a 9-point favorite. Last week I took Texas Tech to beat West Virginia Morgantown. Stupid pick. I said before the season started that Texas Tech was going to be the worst team in the Big 12. I was completely right. They're total trash. They're terrible.
I don't know about the worst.
They are the worst. They're terrible. They're going to finish dead
State
last.
out there.
I had them dead last in the Big 12 in my preseason prediction.
Yeah.
I still believe they're there. I don't care about the game against Oregon. Texas Tech, no. West Virginia, defense, great. Offense, great offensive line. The skill players that just are lacking. But if they don't make mistakes, they can stay in games, they can win games. TCU gets a home game. They have been disappointing to me. They're not bad, but I just thought Chandler Morris and Trey Sanders would be a 1-2 punch bigger than what they've been. So bottom line here, West Virginia goes in to Fort Worth, keeps it within 9. Maybe wins the game, but I'm going to take West Virginia. Go Mountaineers.
So I don't think we picked this game, which is surprising because SMU versus TCU is
we didn't pick that last week.
Big rivalry game. TCU ended up winning pretty good, 34-17. West Virginia, I mean, even in their wins, they don't look great. They beat Texas Tech 20-13. They beat Pitt 17-6. They played Duquesne and beat them 56-17, but that's a pay to get a loss type game. I'm going to take TCU. I do think Chandler Morris is playing better than maybe you give him credit for. He's thrown for 1,117 yards, 9 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. So playing pretty good. He's definitely playing a lot better than West Virginia's Garrett Green.
Yes. Well, Garrett Green, I don't even know I didn't watch the game against Texas Tech, so I don't know if Green even came back because the week before against Pitt, he got knocked out.
Oh, okay. So yeah, he hasn't even. I haven't even really been.
Yeah. So West Virginia, I believe, is still in their backup. If you're a West Virginia fan, please comment and let me know.
You are right. The last game, he had 2 attempts against Pitt, so you were right. But still, I don't know. I just think that TCU is better than what they're given credit for. Okay. I'm taking TCU in the points.
All right, last game. Alabama, 14.5-point favorite against Mississippi State. Alabama, surprised, played pretty well against Ole Miss last week. Covered. Doesn't mean they're back, but, I mean, they got to go with Milrose, right? I mean, he's their best option quarterback. He didn't play a terrible game. They still are making mistakes. It's not the Alabama of old, but Nick Saban's, he's the GOAT. I know he's in his last year, but I think he has these guys ready to play. Mississippi State, year in, year out, is usually at the bottom of the SEC West. I think they're playing a little bit better this year, but they're not at Alabama's level. I got Alabama covering 14.5.
Yeah, Mississippi State has lost their last 2, 41-14 and 37-30. That's against LSU and South Carolina, respectively. And you do get back home. You're back in Starksville, but I don't know. I think that Alabama is hopefully 14.5 points better.
I would hope so.
Or more. And, I don't know that I want to pick Mississippi State at all, really, this year.
Yeah.
There's that guy. I don't know if he works for Barstool or whatever, but Brandon something. And that dude hates Oklahoma. I mean, absolutely hates Oklahoma to the point where anything he tweets, Oklahoma fans are under in his mentions constantly. And he even made a video about it or like a tweet about it saying like, he's so annoyed by OU fan. It's funny. It's how you felt about, what was that?
Mark May.
Yeah, Mark May. How Ohio State fans just hated him.
No hater bigger than Mark May when it comes to the Buckeyes.
Well, this dude, Brandon Walker or something like that. I don't know. I don't even care to get his name right at this point. But
yeah. Okay.
Roll Tide.
That's our picks for Week 5. Please go check out Odds Jam. It's the tool you're going to want if you're a serious sports bettor. All the sports books across the country. It's instant odds, no delays. You're going to want that. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed. Like the video, leave a comment, hit that notification bell. And good luck this week. We will see you next week for Week 6. Take care.